These strange and creepy online mysteries have been baffling online sleuths ever since they were first discovered. Some lead to rabbit holes with no clear explanation, while others are simply missing one piece of the puzzle that might explain everything. Number 10. In September of 2022, an anonymous 4chan user made a creepy post to the site's paranormal board. Their friend had seen something they couldn't explain, and to this day, no definitive answer to the mystery has been uncovered. The poster explained that their friend was staying at a Super 8 motel in Ontario, Canada. Like a lot of motels, the room came with the TV, with channels running from 1 to 68. But the friend decided to flick past 68 to see if there was anything else or if the TV would just cycle back to 1. They found a channel 69, which featured nothing but static, and the next was channel 73, which showed something much more eerie, because a creepy white face was visible on a black screen, almost entirely covered with static. It was difficult to make out any features of the man's face, but it was definitely a face. The eerie, ghostly white face understandably scared the friend and the 4chan anon who shared the video of the creepy image. The face was completely still, as if the feed had frozen, and there was no sound. Other anons agreed that it was a creepy image, and a few tried to find explanations for it. Despite being on the paranormal board, most agreed that this wasn't something paranormal, although it might have been someone trying to make something look that way. The most popular theory was that this was the work of a TV pirate. TV interference is much more difficult in modern times than it was in the past. Even if a would-be pirate can get access to an unsecured channel, the chances are it would be quickly discovered and shut down. Another 4chan user explained that pirates would typically broadcast a simple image to test a channel before a proper hijacking. If this image goes unnoticed and remains on air, it's a signal that they can broadcast something more complex. The image was something that only other pirates were ever supposed to see. Another theory was that it was simply a mistake. The TV was picking up something from another channel with a poorly shielded cable, but this wouldn't explain the eerie, still image. The other possibility is that this was entirely fake. The friend shared videos showing the TV from different angles with the still face visible, but that doesn't mean they didn't put it there themselves. It is possible to connect a computer to a TV screen using a simple HDMI cable, and then run the creepy video through that. Number 9. Around the internet, there are groups of people dedicated to searching for and eventually finding lost media. The media involved can be anything from a children's cartoon to a PSA to an entire lost movie. One of the most mysterious pieces of lost media searched for today is a film that may not have ever existed. If it did exist, it would be over 100 years old and would be the first adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. The earliest surviving adaptation of Dracula is the 1922 movie Nosferatu. At least one adaptation is known to predate this, though, a Hungarian film released just a few months earlier. But allegedly predating both of these was a movie made in Russia in 1920. Known simply as Dracula, very little is actually known about this supposed adaptation. It supposedly starred Ukrainian actors, though their names have not been preserved. Despite the little information, that hasn't stopped internet sleuths from trying to get to the bottom of the mystery, or at least determine if it really existed. The search for Dracula 1920 began with the 1994 book, The Vampire Book, an encyclopedia of the undead. It was here that the movie was first noted. Written by J. Gordon Melton, the encyclopedia has little to say about the 1920 adaptation, other than it was created in Russia and no copy survives. In comments on the Lost Media Wiki, one investigator mentioned that they had contacted Melton about this adaptation. Melton claimed he had spotted a reference to the movie in the 1975 book, The Dracula Book, by Donald F. Glut. In that book, Glut writes other film versions of Dracula are reported to have been made about this time, one being Russian, but there's no verification to substantiate these claims. Another commenter mentions that a reference to the Russian movie can be found in the June 1963 issue of Famous Monsters in Filmland. In a section on various Dracula adaptations, the writer states that a man described as a, quote, stage monster specialist told him that there had been a Russian version of Dracula, but no date was mentioned. At this point, it seemed as if the 1920 Dracula movie was nothing more than a rumor. But in 2014, a Russian news website claimed a copy of the movie had been rediscovered in Serbia. According to the article, film critic and restoration worker Klara Stanek had discovered the film. Dracula was shown at an event alongside another early Russian silent film, both of which were described as examples of the decadent trend in Russian art. A photo from the event features in the article, but no images from the mysterious film are presented. No other information about the Dracula adaptation has ever been released, leading many to believe this article was nothing but a hoax. 1920 was in the middle of a Russian civil war. While films were made in Russia during this time, they were primarily documentaries or used for propaganda purposes. That doesn't necessarily mean that Dracula wasn't one of those films, though. Nothing is known about the storyline of the alleged adaptation. The Hungarian movie, made 2 years later, doesn't follow the storyline of Bram Stoker's novel very closely, and it's possible this Russian movie didn't either. The idea of an aristocratic monster feeding on the honest and hardworking lower class might have been seen as an easy way to adapt it into a propaganda movie. Bram Stoker's book was popular in Russia, and it was a story that most people knew, so using it to spread ideological ideas isn't impossible. Number 8. In 2008, staff at Edge Hill University in Lancashire, England, made a strange discovery on Google Maps. Located near the university was a town they had never heard of before. Searching for the town online, they found advertisements for local jobs, weather updates, and even houses for sale. But visiting Argleton in person, they found an empty field and not much else. Mike Nolan, head of web services at the university, was the first to notice the mysterious town. He'd grown up in Ogden, a small town north of Liverpool, and not far from the university. When looking at the town on Google Maps, he found that it had seemingly been renamed to Argleton. Even the school he had attended as a child was now apparently located in the phantom town. Nolan made a short blog post about the mysterious town, joking that Google was trying to wipe Ogden off the map. He didn't think much of it, although he and other locals reported the error to Google. But within a few months, local and national newspapers were reporting on this mysterious town. The fact that other places online seemed to believe Argleton was real didn't add to its authenticity. These sites use software packages based on Google's geographical information. The error all came back to the same source, rather than all these places individually making the same mistake. People speculated on how and why the town had come to exist. Some more conspiracy-minded individuals suggested it was Lancashire's own Bermuda Triangle, and this was actually a hint that there was something more sinister going on that Google had accidentally revealed. A more logical explanation was that this was a simple mistake. The word Argleton is close to Ogden, and sounds like a place that might exist. The theory was that someone had either mistyped or misheard Ogden as Argleton, and the mistake had never been corrected. But the name Argleton was seen on Google Maps alongside Ogden, and it looked as if they were supposed to be two different locations, albeit ones that were very close to one another. Another theory was that Argleton was placed on the map deliberately. Sometimes map makers will insert fictional locations as a way to mark their work as their own, and that way it's easy to spot maps that have infringed on their copyright or otherwise copied their material without permission. Someone checking to see if their work had been stolen could simply look for the fictional town as evidence, and it was also pointed out that Argleton was an anagram of G not real. When national newspapers started to pick up on the story, Google put out a statement saying that most of their information was correct, but mistakes were occasionally made. At the time, Google sourced their data from the Dutch company Tel Atlas. In a statement, TelAtlas said that it could not explain how the anomalies entered its database. On this blog, Nolan pointed out the dangers of these mistakes. This was a time when Google Maps was starting to replace other digital maps as the go-to source for directions, and mistakes like these could have left people in dangerous situations. Number 7. Mexico is dangerous for journalists, especially in states like Tamaulipas, where criminal organizations have significant control. To combat the lack of accurate public information, citizens have turned to social media, risking their lives to report on criminal activity and risk situations. In 2012, an anonymous citizen launched Valor por Tamaulipas, a Facebook page dedicated to sharing up-to-date information about violence, particularly the war between the Gulf Cartel and Los Zetas. The page quickly gained attention for providing life-saving warnings. The admin's criticism of the gangs led to threats, and just 6 months after launch, the Gulf Cartel created an opposing Facebook page. In February of 2013, flyers offered a 60,000 peso reward for information on the admin or their family. The admin refused to be silenced, saying, quote, "Not all of us will submit to them," and ensured his wife and children were safe in the US. Despite threats and attacks on other citizens, the admin continued the page for nearly 3 years, keeping his identity secret. In November of 2014, he retired, passing management off to a friend. And today, groups in Tamaulipas and other states continue his work to keep their communities safe. Number 6. One of the weirdest and creepiest things to come from 4chan didn't come from its infamous random board or even paranormal. It came from the site's sports board, where people gathered to talk and debate various sports, and for one user, a place where they would come to stalk their victims. 4chan is best known for its anonymity. Users can choose to use a username or a trip code to identify themselves, something which gives their posts a little more authority, as it's possible to track their posts from thread to thread. But most choose to remain anonymous, with their identity completely hidden from only the most dedicated of users. UTV was a trip code user and frequently posted to the sports board, and a board dedicated to football managers. Despite having a username, very little about UTV's offline life is known. He's believed to be British, as he mostly posted about the Premier League and supported Aston Villa. He was a controversial figure within the sports community, often getting into arguments with other users about their opinions on sporting matters. In 2013, UTV had a series of strange interactions with an anonymous user. UTV seemed to have acquired a stalker, or someone who commented on his posts a lot. The nature of these posts meant it was easy to see that these were from the same person. UTV reacted with hostility, but even with these creepy interactions, neither he nor anybody else on the sports board could have known what would happen next. On October 6th, the anonymous stalker returned with what they claimed would be their final message. According to him, he'd been with UTV for 255 threads, but his parents had discovered his obsession with this random 4chan user. His parents were forcing him to stop, so he was posting everything he'd collected for UTV. The attached document was called the Filmarillion. For some reason, the anon user was under the impression that UTV's real name was Phil, and that he lived somewhere in Kent. The Filmarillion was a 96-page document that archived every post UTV had made, the anon or archiver's thoughts on these posts, and the archiver's ideas for their relationship. The archiver had created parodies of songs dedicated to UTV, as well as scripts for TV shows he imagined starring in with the 4chan user. He made inkblot tests out of UTV's posts and even mocked up a ransom note that he would send to UTV's parents if he ever kidnapped him. The Filmarillion also included a diary where the archiver talked about his interactions with UTV and his feelings for him. He claimed he didn't want a romantic relationship with UTV, but some parts of the diary do read like a jealous lover. After the post was made, UTV responded with a simple question mark, and then disappeared from the site along with the archiver. Number 5. British folk singer Emily Portman was working on her latest album when she received a strange message from a fan. The message was positive, telling her the fan liked her latest work and that the British folk music was in good hands with her. The problem was that she hadn't released anything yet. There was no way the fan could have gotten their hands on Portman's latest album. They provided a link to what they listened to, and Portman quickly realized what had happened. On her Spotify page was a newly released album, complete with cover art and song titles that sounded like something she would create. The album was titled Orca and featured songs such as Black is the Color. Listening to the tracks, the artist did sound similar to Portman, but there was something a little off. According to Portman, she could never sing as perfectly as the musician in the tracks. It was immediately clear this wasn't a real person impersonating her. This was the work of an AI that had seemingly been trained by using her work. The AI album wasn't only on Spotify, it could be found on YouTube and other streaming sites. The tracks only had 100 or so views, but they'd caught enough attention that algorithms had started to recommend them to people who might like Portman's music. Portman isn't the only artist to have been mimicked in this way. Some who have had AI albums released under their name are no longer alive. Initially, Spotify claimed that the music belonged to another Emily Portman, who shared her music on Spotify, and it was simply categorized under the wrong artist. Portman argued that this wasn't the case. The AI music was clearly trying to copy her, everything from instrumentals to lyrics to song titles. When someone uploads a song to Spotify, it's the uploader, rather than the artist themselves, who receives royalty payments. Whoever had uploaded the album under Portman's name had received whatever royalties Spotify would pay for streams on those tracks. This seems like an obvious motive for whoever was behind this mysterious album, but it's not clear why they chose Portman. Her first album had received some praise, and she even won a BBC Folk Award over 10 years ago, but she wasn't the kind of artist who received large numbers of streams. During the time the Orca album was up, the uploader would have received no more than $6 per track. Who was behind this is even more of a mystery. Portman speculated that it might have been entirely the work of a bot, and her account was chosen at random. But there had to be someone receiving the royalty payments for this, who presumably set up the bot in the first place. Number 4. Ever since 2002, people have been able to share their thoughts and experiences of locations on Google Maps directly through Google Reviews. These reviews allow people to see what to expect when visiting a new restaurant or tourist location. As the reviews are tied to an individual user, it also allows anyone to see what other locations a reviewer has been to, which can help determine whether a review is trustworthy or not. But in 2024, a Redditor noticed one Google review account that seemed extremely disturbing. Ricky Calderon is a local guide level 6 with countless reviews of locations across the United States. Most of his reviews are for locations in Florida, with clusters in Chicago and other parts of the country. All of Ricky's reviews are 4 or 5 stars, and most don't go into any more detail than that. Some provide a little information on the quality of the food, service, and parking, but Ricky rarely goes into any personalized account of his time at any location. At first, this wouldn't seem too strange, but going to the Photos tab of Ricky's profile reveals something extremely unusual. The account has hundreds of photos to go along with his reviews. Almost all of them feature the location reviews in the background, with the upper half of a woman's face in the foreground. The vast majority of these photos come without any context. A handful of Ricky's reviews describe a hostess or worker who served him, but the vast majority have no personalization at all, and there's no explanation for who the women in the photos are supposed to be. It's obvious that the women featured on Ricky's review page aren't actually in the locations in the photo. Some of the women have simply been cut out of other images, but others look computer-generated, and some are characters from video games. None of the editing is particularly well done, and it's unlikely the person who created them believed anyone would actually believe the images to be authentic. Why these images are even here is a mystery. Some have suggested it might be an AI bot trained to create images to go along with reviews. Some of the early pictures on Ricky's account feature a menu that seemed to be held up in front of a woman's face. It's possible these were the images the AI was being trained on, and the computer simply locked onto the woman's face and recreated that part of the image rather than the menu. But there are holes in this theory. Some of the images feature recognizable video game characters. It's unlikely an AI would create this sort of thing without being deliberately asked for it. The images also seem to be getting less realistic with time. If this were an AI training program, there's no reason why the images would actually be posted. Recently, Ricky posted an image of a woman posing with a Yoshi doll, which also features in his profile picture. Not only does this image not fit the pattern, but it also seems to be a real photo. Another theory is that this is someone trying to attract attention to his Google reviews page, in the hopes of being able to sell his reviews. According to one commenter, they've been approached by someone offering money for fake reviews when their real reviews started to get attention online. If this is the case, Ricky's strange images definitely attracted attention. Ricky Calderon is still posting as of November of 2025, but it seems we're no closer to solving the mystery. Number 3. In January of 2024, a Redditor posted on the Internet Mysteries subreddit about a strange phone number connected to a fictional amusement park. According to the Redditor, they had an interest in weird phone numbers and were calling 800 numbers in search of anything strange or unusual. It was by methodically going through these numbers that they stumbled across the anomaly. Calling 800-222-1111 led to a voicemail for a place called Fun Dragon Wings Happy Zone. The cheerful voice thanked the caller for calling and described the park's location as off State Highway 687, just 4 miles past Jeepers Seekers Blueberry Farm. The voicemail then goes on to describe the attractions at Fun Dragon Wings Happy Zone, which include swings, a water slide, and dragon-themed restaurant. Some of the regular activities were a knit-your-own mittens club and marble rolling contest. The message ends with the speaker roaring, playing on the dragon theme. The message would be a little funnier, but otherwise unusual if Fun Dragon Wings Happy Zone actually existed. But when internet sleuths tried to find the mysterious amusement park, they found nothing close to it. In the US, there are 2 State Highway 687s, neither of which has any similar sounding amusement parks. But there is a County Route 687 located in New Jersey. By listening to the man's accent, Redditors determined he was likely located in the New Jersey or Philadelphia area, and the phone company that owns the number is also located in New Jersey. But Fun Dragon Wings Happy Zone still doesn't exist. One commenter found a theme park called Storybook Land, located about an hour away from County Route 687. This had a dragon-themed ride, but it wasn't an entire section of the park. There were also no blueberry farms around. Jeepers Seekers Blueberry Farm also doesn't seem to exist. The recording seemed professional, and not something someone could do without any planning. Music played in the background, and some theorized it could have been taken from an old TV advertisement. But the message begins explicitly thanking the caller for phoning in.
Thank you for calling the Fun Dragon Wings Happy Zone. Located off of State Highway 687, just 4 miles past Jeepers Seekers Blueberry Farm.
This led many to believe that the whole thing was part of an ARG, or alternate reality game. Someone figured out that the correct pin was 7627, or ROAR, meaning the last part of the message was actually a hint. But when the correct pin was input, it didn't lead to another clue in the game. Callers were met with a standard message stating that the voicemail count had been disabled and prompting them to contact the system administrator. Not long after this was figured out, the PIN was changed. A few months after, the phone number was disconnected. Number 2. People have been trying to use the internet to tell stories in new and innovative ways since the early days of the medium. Some of those early internet stories have been preserved in archives, but some have been lost to time. One of these early internet creative projects has become the subject of a lost media search, which uncovered a strange and creepy story. CR6 stands for Clickable Reality 6. It was touted as the first internet soap opera and was launched in 1997. According to the creator, it received plenty of media attention when it was first launched, and he claimed it would be a hit for years to come. The premise of the soap opera was simple. The stories were told through text and photos. No videos were used in the early days of the creation. Users would go to the CR6 website and could click on various images to learn about the stories of the 6 main characters. Each story would be updated weekly, and past episodes could be read in the archive. The creator, Chris McKinstry, claimed there would be video episodes coming in the future, and even talked about a special live episode to take place during Halloween. Unfortunately, CR6 didn't make it to its 10th episode, and very little about the project has been preserved until today. CR6 remained in internet obscurity most hadn't heard of until August of 2021, when a Redditor made a post about the web series. Redditor Incorporated Projects had been watching an episode of Better Call Saul while clicking through the Wikipedia article related to it, and this led him to the edit history of an actor playing a side character. The earliest edits of this page mentioned CR6. The line read, quote, "He was raised in Winnipeg, Manitoba, where in 1997 he was cast in an early internet soap opera, CR6. Nothing else about the mysterious soap opera could be found on Wikipedia or anywhere else on the internet, so Incorporated Projects took his search to the Lost Media subreddit. Redditors were able to find a little more information. A promotional video about the project had been posted to a YouTube channel, which seemed to share videos from Winnipeg and had other connections to CR6. Internet searchers were also able to find an archive of the original CR6 website. The final main source of information was Chris McKinstry's own website. He had talked a little about the project, even boasting that it had featured on CNN in a 3-minute segment that had played throughout the day. He also posted a clipping of the front page of the Winnipeg Free Press that featured an article on CR6. Despite these sources, very little about the actual piece of lost media could be uncovered. Sleuths found the names of the 6 actors who starred in the show. One of these, Anita Dittmar, had mentioned it in a blog she wrote in 2013, but it seemed like CR6 hadn't been a major launching pad for any careers. The reason for this was clear. McKinstry had creative problems with the writers on the show, blaming them for poor writing and storylines. CR6 ended after less than 10 episodes, and McKinstry sold the rights to the intellectual property to the cast for just $1. Those who worked on CR6 claimed McKinstry never paid them. He owed money to photographers, writers, drivers, and even the limousine company that he'd hired for the launch event. When CR6 failed, he fled to Chile, where he spent the rest of his life. He passed away in 2006, leaving behind speculation about a possible conspiracy theory to fake his own passing. Number 1. Most people online have dealt with spam emails at least once, but most won't have experienced anything as strange as those who received emails from a woman named Toots Honeychurch. What these emails mean and why they're being sent out is a mystery. In 2014, a user on a fantasy football forum shared the text of a strange email he'd been sent. He described it as one of the most amazing spam emails he'd ever received. It had the subject, "Kidnapped 8 years, Honeychurch Rosa," and it came from a Toots Honeychurch Rosa. The text of the email was written in all caps and talked about her family, but it didn't actually make much sense. On occasion, there were references to a kidnapping, and it seemed as if she was trying to raise awareness of this. She mentioned that she was almost done advertising with every college professor in Oklahoma, which might be a way she's trying to raise awareness of the kidnapping, or it could be something completely unrelated. The other forum users had no idea what the email was about. Some suggested it might be a code of some kind, and that the first letter of every line could provide a secret message. That didn't seem to be the case, though. Another user found the exact same text shared in a Google group in 2010, showing that this strange campaign had been going on for a while. The mysterious Toots Honeychurch faded into obscurity again until 2019. Someone posted the name on the Fake Names subreddit and later explained that they'd received an email from someone going by that name, and they thought it couldn't be real. The post didn't get much attention at first, but soon many other users were sharing their experiences with Honeychurch. Dozens of people had received spam emails from someone going by that name. These were no longer the weird kidnapping text, but seemed to be some kind of bizarre newsletter sharing conspiracy theories and news stories related to Hawaii. Honeychurch also seemed to have a strange interest in a chilling criminal case, the Bear Brook Mystery. That case involved someone taking the life of a woman named Marlise Honeychurch, as well as 3 children. It's unknown if Toots Honeychurch actually has any relation to this case, or if she simply found it interesting. Other users reported receiving resumes from Toots Honeychurch. Rather than being anything related to a job application, though, they were notes about a serial killer. Most of the emails didn't make any sense, and many users suspected the woman might have some kind of mental health problems. But what makes this case so strange is just how many emails are being sent out. At the end of some of the messages, Honeychurch included lists of email addresses she was presumably contacting, and some of these belonged to government officials or other public officials. Others were just ordinary people who she had somehow gotten into contact with. Investigations into Toots Honeychurch turned up records from 2016 from the US election, where she ran as a candidate for the Senate. She only received 1% of the votes, but on a website for her candidacy, she provided some explanation for the emails. She claimed she'd spend time in the evenings emailing entire university departments to introduce herself, and boasted about the number of universities she had emailed. Honeychurch still didn't explain how she'd gotten the email addresses of ordinary people, though. And most importantly, it's still a mystery why she started doing this in the first place. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.